Hello everyone, it's me, the TauBitzer. I'm gonna do my first interview. My interview series has finally come, and of course, we gotta get our very first guest in here. And the very first guest is our boy, Cyanide Blizzard, or Mr. Positivity.
Hey, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for having me on.
No problem, the pleasure's all mine. I was just super happy. You were like the very first person I contacted. So,
You flatter me.
I mean, I couldn't have this interview without Mr. Positivity start off this series. I need positive. So
Keep those good vibes coming. Absolutely. Well, we'll see what we can do here then.
So how's your wonderful day going, man?
Oh, it's going very well. The weekend's here. You can't complain about any of that whatsoever. Looking forward to enjoying the rest of my time off. More importantly, I'm looking forward to what may just pop up during this interview, so quite excited for it.
Oh yeah. So I got about 18 questions here. The final question is from my friend Tuco Rigel. So let's just get into the very first question. I think my very first question is almost similar to every interview so we obviously gotta get the basic question out of the way. What is your favorite anime?
Ooh, I'm really glad that you brought that up. Whenever someone ever asks me about a favorite or naming a list of things, I always blank. And the example I'll give you as to why is this. So recently I finally got a chance to get some downtime from my freelance work. I was going through one of the streaming apps I have, and I saw that they had Midori no Hibi, Midori Days on there. I used to love this show. I remember that, and I had not seen it in years. I was like, you know what? I've got some downtime. Let's rewatch this. It's been a while. And as I was watching, it kind of hit me. I was remembering watching the show, and I remembered just exactly how much I liked it. But if you would have asked me to have made some kind of list, that show would have never been mentioned at all. And I realized the more you watch, the more seasons that happen, the more time that passes, the more those kind of shows fade overall. It's really difficult for me to cite. Like, if I really had to pick a show, if you forced me to, the show that I first purchased was Trigun. I had bought a bootleg DVD copy on eBay, and that was the first actual anime purchase I ever made. I had borrowed tapes from a friend of mine years back, really got into the show, and it's one of those things where even going back and revisiting, it still just clicks with me. It was one of those go-to recommendations I would give to casual fans or people who were just getting involved in anime. Be like, hey, if there's something that's a bit palatable, a bit more easier to approach and digest, that was one of the shows that I would always go with. I haven't done recommendations for people in quite a while, but back when I used to, that was it. So if I had to pick, it'd be Trigun.
Trigun is amazing. I can't really debate with you there. I think it's in my top 30. When it came to Cowboy Bebop versus Trigun as an overall show and characters, I really preferred Trigun, which a lot of people didn't. When I was talking to several friends, they hated me for it, but I was like, hey, Trigun's amazing.
That was always the discussion, Cowboy Bebop and Trigun, you got an actual cowboy, you got a space cowboy,
Which one's better?
Which one's better?
So going off of that, what's your least favorite anime and your favorite character of all time?
Oh boy.
I will let you know, my least favorite anime of all time is Serial Experience Lane. That was absolute garbage. And I hate when I get confused. Whenever I get confused with something, I get really tipped. So I wasn't the biggest fan of that or Fooly Cooly.
More cerebral shows or shows that are a bit more liberal with their presentation, I've always found to be very fascinating. Lane I watched years back when there was a block of television called Anime Unleashed. They had that on, they aired it on TV, and I was watching it that way, and I caught it midway as it was airing. So it made even less sense to me. So it was, when I actually got a chance to buy it and to go back through it fully from start to finish, it was like, oh, okay, so much more makes sense now. I get it. There's a lot of shows that I'll harp on. There's a lot of shows that I'll get after. Shows like Chaos Dragon really stick out in my mind, where it was like, this is an uncomfortable experience. I never really cared that much for Overlord, but there's never really been a show that I've absolutely detested. I remember Vice Cruise, Night Hunters. I remember watching that up till the end, hating the ending so much that I gave a friend of mine the box set that I bought, and I didn't want any money in return. I was like, no, you just take it. I don't want it anymore. It's like, you sure? Okay. Because yeah, I did not want the show anymore. I just absolutely detested the way that show ended. There have been things like that, but nothing that's ever stood out in my mind where it was just like, oh my gosh, and I would just rant from the hilltops. I don't know. I actually find bad shows to be really fascinating, or shows that I may not necessarily like as much to be really interesting in terms of who they appeal to and why. Horizon on the Middle of Nowhere was one of those where I just, oh my gosh, my friend and I tore that show apart in a review I did years back. And I know quite a few people who like that show. I know people who were fans of the light novel, and it's really interesting hearing them talk about it, because I'm just like, no, I hate it. This is so bad. It's so terrible. But it's really interesting hearing where they come from, why they like what they do, their approach to it, things that I may be missing in regards to consuming it. So I guess overall, as much of a cop-out answer as it is, I've never really hated a show long-term. There have been shows I've despised or disliked, but never really anything that I would ever put on that kind of a list.
You know, that's the perfect Keanu Reeves answer. you know that. What do you believe is gonna happen in the afterlife? Oh, you know, the people on the earth will miss us. That's the perfect answer, man. Because I mean, I can agree with that. Like the smartphone isekai, I don't know if you've seen that. That was garbage, but it was like one of those garbage that you can laugh at all the time. So I watched the entire show, which is I almost wanted to drop it, but I was like, it's so bad I want to continue watching it.
And you see, that's just it. When a show is that entertaining, regardless of quality, is it really that bad then if you're still entertained by it?
Yeah.
You know, it kind of poses a whole new question there.
I think, like, Serial Experiment Lane, the one reason why I wasn't into it was because, or Fooly Cooly, me as a character in real life, whenever I'm confused, I kind of get a little angered by it, and I want to try and figure out what the heck's going on as fast as possible. And Serial Experiment Lane made me confused so much that it just drew a hatred towards the show. I have nothing against the show other than I just had hatred coming for it, because I'm not the biggest fan when it comes to confusion. I'm very smart to avoid that, but
no, it depends. Some shows you have to watch more than once to kind of get everything. Some shows, you know, like the clear message is kind of just scrambled or muddled, and it ends up being more of a personal interpretation thing. Sometimes, like Neon Genesis Evangelion, the TV show ending, sometimes budgetary restraints come in and it goes from there. I always really liked the Evangelion ending. I thought as an overall message it worked for the show. I know a lot of people who hated the ending. So, I mean, that's just it. It's all about personal taste and our own preferences that come into play with that. So, no, I more than get that. Like, you know, that's the thing. A lot of friends I had growing up loved Lane. I mean, that was the show that we would talk about a lot. And it wasn't really until I started going online that's when I met people who hated the show. And it was really fascinating for me. The more conversations I'd have, the better understanding I get as to why they did. Like with your reason right there. I mean, you're not the only person. I know other people do. I know Too Spooky hates Serial Experiment Lane. That's the thing.
I know him and Nestaku hate it, and I was like, when I watched it before I heard their opinion, so it wasn't like, oh, I scrambled with them. No, I had no idea they watched it. It was just one of those anime that I was like, one of my friends recommended to me, and I told him afterwards, I'm like, what did you show me? I had a horrible time, but going off of all those questions, if you had to pick a favorite character or a character you can who would your favorite character be if you had to pick one in all of anime?
That's really tough.
It is.
I mean, that's always the problem I've had. You know, like I said, it ties back into the more shows you view. There's a lot of really interesting protagonists out there, a lot of interesting characters. Villains, motives, even side characters. Boy,
there's so many great characters out there. Like, one of my favorite protagonists is Gintoki from Gintama. One of my side characters I love, I don't know if you would consider him a side character, is Iskander from Fate Zero. I loved him. Villains, obviously you have Miriam, Dio. There's so many great villains and so many great characters out there that even when you look at all the bad characters, the great characters always overrate them because they just stand above everyone else, and they just stand out. And
an interesting character will stand the test of time. Absolutely. Whether good, bad, whatever it may be, it's something that can get out there and become really interesting. Not meaning to give Evanito guff here, but what was really fascinating is with a character like Hestia. Hestia's design very clearly is to take appeal and fascination to the character's physique as opposed to the personality, which is why when you know, the dungeon rom-com came out, she was huge. And then it was like after that, she just completely disappeared. Because as a character, there's little to no substance. There's nothing really that makes her stand out overall other than the physical. So it became very much a flavor of the month kind of thing. That doesn't mean that there aren't people out there who appreciate the character. Doesn't mean that she doesn't have any development or growth throughout the series. But the draw that people had was a lot less substantial than, you know, Gintoki from Gintama. It's not going to necessarily be to the same effect as that, or you know, like someone like a Dio from JoJo. It's just their appeal is far different on an overall level that, you know, ultimately at the end of the day, it's going to stand the test of time. It's going to be something that's going to persevere and persist through something, you know, which is what makes characters fascinating, what makes them interesting. You know, is the essential basis of the draw superficial? Is it temporary, or is it something that can build into something else? Or maybe it is superficial of what draws you in, but then we find there's more substance and more reason behind it as we see it go on. Rem was a really strong example. I mean, obviously, if you look at the design and characteristics of Rem from Re:Zero, the general basis is nothing really substantial, but it was her development as a character in the story arc that propelled her to the stratosphere popularity, and as a result really cemented her as one of the go-to characters, hence the whole Amelia versus Rem argument that plagued Re:Zero back, you know, 2016, 2017.
Yeah.
She was a predominant favorite because of her struggles, because of her tribulations, because people could empathize with her, they could sympathize with her, they saw her growth, and they gravitated to that growth, despite the fact that I don't really think anyone was talking about her prior to that. Things like that I love to see, you know, especially if you're a fan of the medium, seeing a character like that just emerge and seeing people talk about them, you know, revere them, admire them, or detest them, that's really fascinating.
I'm all on the who's Rem side. I found her I liked her. It's hard for me to say who I like better because I didn't like either one of them when I first watched the show. Like, I thought Rem had development, and that's what I can get behind. Amelia, I can't. I don't know about Amelia. I think my favorite girls in the show would be Beatrice or Kreutz Karsten, the green hair girl. I loved her, but they were the more iconic in Re:Zero.
No, and that's what's interesting is when you have a diverse cast like that, you can pick out your favorites. You can you can find characters that you'll gravitate more towards, which then makes it even more interesting if it's a harem-based series or not, in terms of who the main character or main heroine ends up going towards or with, and if the ending ends up being harem or not, and your thoughts therein on that aspect of it. It all just becomes really interesting, you know, it all becomes really compelling, which is why the whole domestic nakanojo, domestic girlfriend situation of the manga ending and the mangaka getting a ton of ire for the ending. It's what makes it so interesting. It's that emotional investment that people get for those characters, develop for it, and then react as a result of it. You know, you don't want to see anybody get blistered for their choices with something, but I think it's also a testament to how passionate someone was in regards to a series, and specifically that character, and the choices of that character as a result and who they end up with. It's always really interesting seeing that and seeing how people feel about it. I've seen people change their entire perspective of a series by just who the main character ends up with. It's incredibly fascinating.
For the second question, do you own any anime merch?
Yes.
Can't we all? I mean, like I told you before, I got this Boa Hancock figure, a Boa Hancock mouse pad. Like, you know, I don't know if you saw Mood on TV's video when he did the challenge for Too Spooky, where Too Spooky holded up like a Nami little mouse pad. I have like a Boa Hancock version of that. I mean, I can't really. I'm a degenerate.
No, there's nothing wrong with it. You know, in terms of a business perspective, that was probably one of the smartest things that the industry could have done, is put out merch of that. You know, what better way to celebrate your favorite character than to be able to get merchandise of them? Here's the thing: a lot of people don't realize. It's just, you know, I primarily collect, you know, Blu-ray, DVD. I've got manga, and I got a whole bunch of art books. I used to buy figures, stopped. I resold those. But the thing with that's really fascinating is a lot of that stuff maintains value incredibly. Figures I maintain are a tremendous investment. I either made a profit off of or sold close to equal what I paid for pretty much all the figures that I sold. I've still got a few around, but I mean, that's the thing is, by and large, art books as well. I've spent over $100 on an art book. And the general price, or for a doujin or for an art book can range anywhere between 10 United States dollars to 30 at retail price, and it just goes up from there. I mean, in terms of a marketplace for buying and selling, it's not necessarily a bad thing to invest in. Manga's no different as well. It generally maintains price pretty well. Same thing with anime. That's the thing. You can look at it in terms of degeneracy, or you can look at it the fact that you're investing in something that potentially at a later date, should you choose to, if you're looking to sell it, you will either be able to make a profit off of or else be able to get some return on your investment there. Future business decision, just in things that you enjoy to collect, though.
Oh, I fully agree. Like, I have manga, I have anime DVDs, I have, like, I think all of Dragon Ball, Steins Gate. I don't have a lot of anime DVDs, I have more manga, but... So, if you were to be put into an anime, what type of character would you think you would be?
Ooh. Okay. Alright, so dig this. Feel this with me. And I'm just gonna copyright this right now. I claim all ownership of what I'm talking about here.
Okay.
No. What I would be is I would be a secondary character that would ultimately end up getting wrapped up in the main storyline. What would happen is I would interact with someone who was initially part of a storyline to stop a great evil, and they'd be trying to traverse back to their native land. I would be a merchant, traveling from one area to another, and I would run across this person, and ultimately what I would do is negotiate with them to try to help get them back to where they were, while also trying to get me into their native homeland as a result of that. Trying to, as a merchant, being able to expand exactly where I'm buying and selling, and thus as a result be able to increase my profits. But ultimately get wrapped up in the overall storyline despite I'm just a merchant, I'm just trying to make an extra buck. That's what it would happen to me.
That's a good response. I always thought that you would be like the wingman of all things. So you would be like the ultimate wingman, the ultimate secondary character of all time.
That's right. I'm not going to be the comic relief. I'm going to be the guy that gets swept up into it, plays a little bit of the straight man, but is ultimately consequential to the overall plot. Not inconsequential, but consequential. Oh, who knew that could happen? I didn't. That's for sure. I don't know. I don't know. No, that's a really interesting question, though. That really is.
So, what anime character do you relate to the most, and why do you relate to this character?
Well, I guess it's more video game, but I always really liked Claude C. Kenny, Star Ocean Second Story, the anime adaptation of Star Ocean EX, which was adapted from the manga Star Ocean Second Story, which covers basically the first half of the game. Claude is the son of Ronix, who was one of the main four characters of the original game. His dad, after the end of that conflict, ends up getting promoted to, like, Admiral, and is a very powerful figurehead, and Claude ultimately is trying to claw his way out of that reputation, to make a name for himself, and as a result, you see, especially in the early episodes, kind of will argue back with his dad. You see that juvenile, childish nature. He's in his later teens, and as a result ends up touching this device which transports him to another area. And throughout this journey, he ends up growing along the way, and when I played the game, I just found it to be very relatable, because he's just trying to find himself in life. And that was really the first time I had ever played a story where I really could sit down and went, bam, I immediately can relate to this concept. And I felt very empathetic to him as a person, especially with his shortcomings, his immaturities, his brash nature, how he'd handle situations in ways that were less than desirable. He was human in terms of that, and you felt that humanity. Now, by no means is Star Ocean EX a good show. By no means is it. It's really not. But I always found him as a character to be interesting, because he's trying to work to find himself, and he's still trying to carve his own path while growing up. And that's, I feel like, something we can all relate to. It's a very generic, overarching commonality that we all share. But for me, it was like right place, right time, and that's something that just always stuck with me.
I relate to characters. I won't go into that because I relate to too many of them. But yeah, I honestly, I have no idea what that show is, so I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. I've seen a few too much of everything. So no, and that's the thing with anime's popularity and why it gets so many passionate people is they can gravitate to elements. They can empathize with characters. They can relate, whether it's plugging into that character to live vicariously or being able to relate to the experiences that they're going through, to empathize with their pain and suffering. Art imitates life, imitates art. And we're always able to gravitate to those aspects, which is what makes it so interesting to watch a character overcome. Okay, the whole concept, Midori no Hibi Midori Days, is there's this guy who, he's a delinquent. He gets into fights, beats people up. Mad Dog Sawamura. Okay, that's his nickname. One day he wakes up, boom, there's a girl as his right hand, and she's naked. He's like, WTF, I'm going nuts. And the first thing that she does is she's like, I've had a crush on you for the longest time. And he's like, I don't feel any better that my right hand just confessed to me. This is ridiculous. But it's throughout the experience, through the journey, that we watch him grow up, and we see how things play out from there. It's an interesting story as a result of that. It's that growth, which is why it's unsurprising that so many stories have the main characters taking place from ages anywhere between 13 to 22. Impressionable ages that were maturing into adults. And even being able to see stories with adults is equally as fascinating, seeing characters who have gone through journeys and experiences, and they're still continuing to grow, because we never stop. No matter how old we get, we never stop growing. But stories like that I find endlessly fascinating, as to seeing what exactly is relatable with that, how these characters grow, and how they move up. Even with bad stories, which is one of the reasons why I like them so much. Isekai cell phone, you brought up.
Yes.
Or smartphone. I forgot. It's not just a cell phone. It's a smartphone.
Where he
you
looks
can't
at
use your phone there.
He always uses the map.
Always use it. Well, I mean, that's your phone is a map, so he's not wrong. He's like, hey, where are we now?
I think one of my favorite things, I haven't watched in a while, and then I was watching the Jack and Core YouTube channel, and when they were going after him, I'm laughing the entire time. I'm like, yep, these are the same jokes I have.
Yeah, there you go. Exactly, relatability. So.
Oh yeah. With question number 5 underway, with getting away from some of the anime stuff and a little bit, one question I really want to know is that you are a very positive person, in my personal opinion, and a lot of others. I've seen you in the chats of the Anime Dude, BC Brits, Who's Spooky, Evan Nito, and even in the actual streams. I can even remember the first time I saw you was when you were playing with Nuts and Braids in an Apex game. I don't remember exactly. I think it was like season 4 when they first started actually playing Apex after Rank Cafe and stuff. And I just remember that you were such a positive person who was able to motivate every being around him without any problem. How did you become this positive?
Because I was a very negative person. Because I looked at things from I called it a realistic viewpoint, and after a certain point, I got tired of it. I dealt with depression, I dealt with a lot of other things, and that's just it, is after a certain point, you realize that you need to work to see more in life, because life is not just shades of gray. Life is the full spectrum of the rainbow, and it's being able to find those things. It's not about being blindly optimistic. It's about offering a counterbalance to life's perspectives, especially with something like this year. That's the whole reason I love doing stuff like that. I love being able to interact in a positive way, and it's not about forcing it. It's just speaking my mind. That's literally all I'm doing. There's nothing special with that. All I'm doing is just being myself. And I'm far from perfect. I can get ticked off. I can get angry at someone. I can chew them out. I can be an asshole. Sky's the limit. But at the end of the day, I wanted to be better. I wanted to be more than what I was, and I wanted to continue improving and how I viewed my life and my surroundings. That works for me. It's going to vary from person to person, but ultimately it's, finding that there's more in this life, that there's more things to view, there's more things to see, there's more things to cherish and treasure, and just offering a counterbalance to that. I know that virtually everyone I interact with is not going to get that kind of positivity. That's a horrible presumption to have, but I know that. And I know that from years of talking with a variety of different people. So I just simply started to apply that general aspect to everyday ordinary conversations, which is what stumbled into the whole Nux and Brig stuff, and I would just go off there. You know, I mean, it's like I get pumped up playing with them. I see them doing their good stuff. I can't help but to get motivated talking about it because they're thriving, they're succeeding, they're doing great, no matter what obstacles coming their way. I can't help but to be motivated by that. And I speak up about it because I don't shut up. So, I mean, it's a combination of different things. But that's really all that it is. It's nothing special. It's something we're all capable of doing. We all have that capability within us. It's just a matter of, do you want to? You know, what will allow you to find it? You know, what allows you to see that? Finding that for yourself, finding that happiness for yourself, and then sharing that happiness with other people.
Yeah, I think that's like a really good way of looking at it, like through a realistic standpoint, because life does suck. But if you look at just like some of the positive stuff and just a realistic standpoint of it, obviously, like we've all battled depression, but it just finding that correct motivation, finding the correct people to help us out. That's how I always viewed it.
Absolutely.
So getting into the sixth question, when you started your YouTube-Twitch channel, what was your main reasoning for that?
So, I used to watch a lot of that guy with the glasses stuff way back when they first started. And I had done video editing as well. So I was always intrigued with making content, but it was just simply a matter of time. There was always multiple things I was juggling, and I just never really had time. It was never really that convenient. Wasn't really too sure on what to do. The earliest idea I ever had was probably back in 2009. That was really the first time I'd ever considered making something on YouTube. And after that, I think there was about a handful of different ideas I had before I finally got to 2014. And I'd been doing written reviews at that point. I had done a few collaborative written reviews with a friend of mine. We had finished watching Origaru, my teen romantic comedy Snafu, and it was one of those shows that really hit me, and I was like, wow, I would really, really like to do a video review of this. I don't think a written review would do it any justice. I'd really like to cover this in a more in-depth point. And that was sort of where it all started, and I started off with a show called An Evening With, which was more akin to a podcast where we just kind of sit down, we'd talk about a show, critique it, more of a casual back and forth conversation between two people. Ultimately, after a while, that ended up being scrapped. I was asked by Draconis to come on board for a reaction video for the first 2 episodes of Fate Stay Night Unlimited Blade Works, and enjoyed that, but never really thought anything of it. When he released that video, I think it was a subscriber of his, yeah, I'm pretty sure, they reached out to me and they private messaged me and they said, hey, you should do more of these. And I remember getting that PM, and I remember quite literally thinking, I didn't consider that. And that was really what I started doing with First Impressions. I just simply used the ideas I was going to take with An Evening With when I was going to improve the visuals and everything else, and then just combined it with things that I already had done before. I had done something like First Impressions before with friends, and I knew there was nothing really out there like that in the anime community. So it was just a matter of applying that then, and going from there to see how it was. Unfortunately, it was a lot rougher than I would have cared for it to have been. Way rougher than I wanted it to be, but it was a fun learning process. I had a great time.
For me, it was when I first started seeing Brits. Like, I had the idea of becoming a YouTuber, but I was like, I have a part paralyzed tongue, and it made me harder to speak. And when I saw that Brits, who has a speech impediment and have a fan base like that, it just inspired me to get into this community and actually start making videos. I go off of just whatever I feel like at the day. Obviously, like, now I get into interview Saturdays, but it just depends on what I feel at the day on what I record now. But I think Brigo was like one of the main ones that helped me through it. So
yeah, and sometimes that's all you need. All you need is just that little nudge from something like that. You see someone out there doing something, you go, wait a minute, why can't I do that then? You know, what's stopping me from doing that?
Number 7. We're gonna be going away for I don't know why I have it in this order. This is supposed to be before number 5, but
it's all good.
So most YouTubers or just anime fans in general has a waifu or a husbando. Do you have one? And if so, who would it be?
Oh my goodness. Probably would gravitate between 2 different people: Ralley Vincent from Gunsmith Cats and the Demon Lord from Maoyuu Yuusha. Those 2 probably I would gravitate the most towards. I can't necessarily say I've had one in recent years, but those have always been two of my personal favorites, so.
Okay. I mean, we all have one.
Absolutely.
Like, obviously, I think I told you, if people cannot tell, some of my favorite waifus are Eren Nakari from Food Wars and Boa Hancock from One Piece. But going back to the fourth and fifth question,
Alright.
I mentioned how Brigo was one of the people that inspired me to make my YouTube channel, and I'm not a Twitch streamer, but did any people motivate you or inspire you to become a YouTuber or Twitch streamer?
I'm gonna be honest, no one did really. It was one of those things where I had made videos before for school, and I had edited them before. I enjoyed it. I wanted to take a break from doing work, and I wanted to be active. I was still wanting to continue to be working to some degree on something, and I had done video editing when I was going to school for graphic design. So I figured, this is a great opportunity to expand my knowledge and my capabilities within Premiere Pro and After Effects, if I ever ended up using After Effects. Mainly Premiere Pro was my target. And it was just one of those things where I already had something in mind that I wanted to do. I had something that I wanted to expand with, and I already had an idea of how to do it. So, I hate to say it, but I actually, when I got into making anime videos, I think the only person I really watched was Draconis, and that was just because I found his takes to be interesting. My content was nothing like what he was doing. And outside of him, I didn't watch any anime content. I think the only exception to that was when I was gonna do when you invited me on board to do a reaction video. That was really the first time that I was starting to look into and see who was all out there in terms of the anime YouTube community. And the whole idea for that was to get a good feel for who was doing reaction content and what exactly they were doing, which then I applied the same information and the same knowledge that I gained to my own content, except in that case it was, well, okay, everybody's doing that, so I'm going to do the exact opposite of that or get away from that. So, yeah, I mean, it was just, it was at a point where I didn't really get inspired by anyone. That being said, though, while getting into content creation, I didn't base it off of anyone. After getting into content creation, the more people I interacted with, the more people I got along with, that's where I started to apply little things here and there based on my interactions into my own work.
Did you have any role models that inspired you to this day? Not just for a YouTuber or a Twitch streamer, just the person you became. And mine is actually my dad, because I'm a hard worker and I aspire to be like my dad, if not better.
When I was a kid, I did have role models, but more of the older I got, that more went by the wayside, and it more became, I would take certain traits or characteristics that I thought were really incredible, and I would try to apply them to myself. Like, if you were to ask me today, there isn't anyone that I necessarily idolize or look up to, but there are people that I admire in terms of certain things that they do, and I respect what they do, and I try to gain a little bit off of what they do. So, similar, but yet at the same time, not quite. I mean, that's kind of the thing. Like, YouTube was like that as well. I'll be honest, I only used YouTube to watch music videos. I did not watch content creators. Didn't watch Markiplier, Jacksepticeye, PewDiePie. Didn't watch any of them at all. Didn't care for that stuff. It just, just wasn't my cup of tea. I watched some of that guy with the glasses, but even then, after a while, it would just be background material. And that kind of started to fade by the wayside even by like 2010. So yeah, it's kind of an interesting thing where it wasn't so much that I thought I was too good for it or didn't care for it. It's just, it wasn't really my cup of tea. I didn't really find anything that I necessarily gravitated towards, which is why getting into the anime community and meeting a whole bunch of different people, it gave me an opportunity to see different creators and see what they do and get an understanding of that. Because now I was approaching it from a whole different perspective. That became really fascinating. That became really interesting. And I began to see how much content I was missing from over the years.
I think I didn't get fully into watching YouTube videos until just like a year or two ago. I want to say 2 or 3 years now that I think about it. I really wasn't, like, I had them in the background. I think the only one I really watched when I was younger was Smosh. But that was it. Like, I didn't have too many, like, I didn't start watching Markiplier until like a year ago.
Well, nothing wrong with that.
Or 2 years ago. Same thing with PewDiePie. Jacksepticeye the same way. Like, I didn't know who they were at all until some of my friends told me to watch their content, and I was just like, okay, might as well. But yeah, so I do have a serious question. It's from my own experience and many others.
Go for it.
I mean, we have all suffered through depression, and I know many other have. I have, and you have mentioned previously that you also have. Well, I'm thinking you already mentioned this, but how did you get out of it, and what type of advice would you give other people who are currently suffering through it?
The thing is, there's no real universal solution for getting out of it. When I was younger, there was a lot of things that compiled in and on themselves that ultimately built to a point that made it difficult to get out of. And I tried antidepressants, going in and talking to other people, and they didn't seem to work. I had a really great friend in my life during a period of time where I really needed it, and they were very motivating and inspiring. And for me, that was the springboard that I needed to get out of it. However, that's not always applicable to somebody else. You can't just apply that universally across the board. A lot of it for me just came down to perspective after a while, perception, getting out of environments. Who am I hanging around with? How am I approaching situations? Making sure to take care of my physical and my mental health. There's a lot of little things that we can do to help improve our well-being overall that contribute to the overall. Because even if you have great friends supporting you, or even if you're getting the help that you need, if you're not taking care of yourself on a full level, you're never going to fully get out of that. It's just going to branch off into something else, or just manifest in a different way. So the thing is it's important that you take time to look after yourself. And I do this every now and again. Take time to sit down and really look at my life, look at the people that I'm interacting with, look at the relationships that I have with those people or anybody else, and see, is it healthy? Am I making sure to continue to take steps forward, take care of me? If not just from an exercise perspective, am I getting out and getting sunlight? Sunlight's important. Natural light's really essential. Vitamin D is good for mental health. If I'm going through something, or if there's something happening in my life, making sure that there is somebody I can talk to about it. There's a lot of sources you can use now. You don't have to just go to a therapist in person. There's online things you can go through as well. There's a lot of resources available now more than ever before that we have to handle things like that. It's making sure that you don't neglect yourself, to not forget just how important you are and how important your well-being is. That's sort of the key, but it's something that you have to want. Like, you can have people that are trying to help you, trying to help push you into a right area, trying to get you to a better place, but if you don't want that, and if you're not willing to work for it, all that hard work doesn't mean a dang thing. It's not going to help you get out of there. You've got to want that for yourself. You've got to demand that for yourself. All good things in life are worth the work, and they are work, but that's what makes them such good things.
I fully agree. I think the thing that made me get out of depression, there's no, like you said, there's no way of getting out of it other than yourself getting motivated to actually get out of it. I think my way that I did it was through exercise, because I think I first started doing it because I think I got in depression because I kept on playing too many video games, and I just kept on getting negative about myself. And then I stopped playing video games for, I think, 8 months. I got away from that, so I started exercising more, and then after that I felt a whole lot better after months of just doing exercise and other things like that. So
yeah, I mean, that's the thing. You said it right there. It all depends. Different things contribute to different elements, and it's about figuring out what it is for you. We're all different in that aspect. Very, very different. So it's about figuring out, okay, what works for you, what can help you. Try different things. Don't be afraid to. Change up your diet. Change up what you're doing. Even if it's your scenery, even if it's getting up and moving around a little bit here and there, just to kind of change up what you're doing in everyday, ordinary life, that can still go a long way. A little bit can go a long way. You don't know what exactly will change up your life and how significantly it can. I still never cease to be amazed, to marvel at how a small, simple epiphany can completely change my approach or my perspective on something for the better.
what was the best way for you that helped you build your mentality, if you had to say there was one?
Confidence and self-esteem are probably the most common things with people. Being comfortable with yourself in your own skin. And sometimes it just means going out there. Look, people are always going to criticize someone else over something or another. Differences will always stand out, but differences are what make us who we are. We are unique in a way that cannot possibly be replicated ever. There will never be another person quite like us, period. And it's important to remember that. And it's important to highlight those good things in yourself, to look for the better things. If there are things you want to improve and work on, go ahead, give it a try. There are some things where just flat out you can't do anything about it, and it's about working with that, putting that with your repertoire, adjusting your life with that. There's certain obstacles, certain difficulties we just have to overcome that probably other people don't have to deal with, but that gives you an advantage over someone else, because that's a skill set, a knowledge that you have that someone else will never understand. They'll never have access to that. They may be able to empathize, some other people may be able to relate, but you have that head start over somebody else as a result. Appreciate you. Appreciate what you bring to the table, what you can offer. Use that as a springboard and go from there.
So in your future, do you have any goals for yourself? And where do you see yourself in the next 5 years or 10 years?
I've got a few things in mind. I can't really talk about them, but there's always something in mind. The past few years have been a lot of trial and error, testing and figuring things out. Always have something in mind. Always have a plan going forward. Always have something that you're looking forward to in the future. Doesn't matter how large or small it is. Doesn't even matter if it's tomorrow or the day after that or next week. Doesn't matter if it's just to watch the next episode of a show or meeting up with someone else again. Start small, work your way up from there. Always have something that you look forward to.
What is your greatest inspiration? Or aspiration, whatever the word is I'm looking for.
So, I'm glad that you brought that up. When I was younger, I wanted to go in the law. I had a long-term plan, and then when that didn't work out and I got into a serious relationship, I had a whole plan built around that, which that completely changed. And the one thing I really learned with all that is that while it's great to have those plans in mind, it's important to be flexible. So in all honesty, I don't have anything in mind. I've got things that I want to work towards, but there really isn't that long-term goal that I have set aside because, frankly, I don't know where things are going to go. And for me personally, I need to be able to keep things loose. Because having plans and having those plans get shaken up too much throws me off my game a little bit. It always has to a degree. Learn to adjust it, but still does to a degree. So for me, it was important. It was essential that I approach it differently. So as a result, that's how I approach it. Now, of course, that's not to say there's anything wrong with having a 5, 10, or even a 1-year plan. By all means, that's important. Have something that motivates you, that you're working for and looking forward to. Have that long-term goal set aside. But at the same time, don't forget to be flexible. You never know what direction life's going to go. You never know what's going to happen in your life. Everything may just get turned upside down one day, and now all of a sudden, you're going in a whole different direction that you never could have imagined. Because let me tell you, right now, I would not have imagined I'd be here. Not even 5 years ago. And especially not 10 years ago. So that's the thing. You don't know. And it's important to be flexible for that as a result of that.
I love, whenever you're speaking, I'm always smiling because I cannot believe what you're saying. It is so true. Like, everything you're speaking is so freaking true. Like, I don't know where I'm going to be in 5 years. Like, I know where I want to be, but I have no idea. Because I was talking to my parents, I'm like, I have a plan. I'm a hospitality management student. I won't say at what college, but I'm a hospitality management student. I'm going to my sophomore year, and I want to become a hotel manager of like a 4-star, 5-star hotel. But I don't know if I'm going to continue on this path. I don't know if that's going to change in the next couple of years. And I don't know if being a YouTuber is going to change. If like I take off, I don't know if I'm going to take off. I don't know what's going to happen in that 5 years. I know I want to be, but doesn't mean I'm going to be there. And that's one thing you put into, and I'm very happy you said it like that.
Yeah, I've had multiple major changes. I've been down numerous different career paths. I had no interest in art before, and now I do it for a living. So it's just you don't know. You honestly don't know, and that's the beauty of life. You never know what's around that corner. As bad as things could possibly be, there's only one definitive, and that nothing is a constant. Everything is always changing.
So, similar to question number 9, everyone has a very bad day. Whenever you have those bad days, what is one of your favorite ways to get through the rest of the day?
Counterbalance it. Find something that's, whether it be productive or whether it be comforting company or something just to get your mind off of it, relaxing. Find that thing that works for you so that you're ready to go. The biggest thing above all is to not let that pollute too deeply into you to where then it affects multiple days. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it happens. Sometimes things happen in life and you just need to go through it. You need to just kind of experience it. But it's important that it doesn't consume you, that it doesn't just take over everything.
I know I had a bad day at work one day. I think this was a year ago. I had a 12-hour shift, so it was stressful already. And we just had a lot of customers go through. And I got to the point where I was so frustrated. So, like, I was already I woke up on the wrong side of the bed. And then when I got home, I didn't want to take it out on my family. So my first instinct, I'm going to head out to the garage. I'm going to work out. And I spent an entire hour just doing whatever I can, just exercising, getting all that off, blowing out the steam, pretty much through that way. And those are the type of bad days I have. I usually just try and exercise and just think about something else, or sometimes I just pull on Konosuba.
There you go. That's exactly it. You know, it's understanding you and understanding the fact, hey, look, I don't want to take this out on someone else, so you redirect it. That's exactly what I'm talking about.
So let's get into a serious question.
Oh my.
The depression, that's serious, but this is even more serious. We need to know this.
I'm ready.
Who would win in a fight between Soma Yukihiro from Food Wars or Goku from Dragon Ball? I know, it's like...
Soma.
There you go.
Soma, hands down. Why is that? Goku's weakness is food.
Obviously. And we all know, when it comes to food, there's a Japanese show that I heard about that they pretty much, make people orgasm and make them try and do something. And we all know, when you're orgasming, you don't know you're not the best at it. And Soma makes food that makes both gender orgasm. So with that already into it, and Goku, he may be able to go into universal mode, but if he orgasms, he can't control his power, so he would just end up hurting himself. And Soma Yukihiro already has light speed, so Soma wins. Sound logic.
Exactly.
I was really hoping you would say Soma.
Oh, absolutely.
Why
not? Yeah. Hands down.
Hands down. What do you usually do on a day-to-day basis? What does your usual day look like?
Oh my gosh. The problem with freelance work is that as a result, my day varies heavily. It really depends. I mean, if I've got downtime, I like to try to get caught up any backlog I have, whether it be manga, anime, light novels, visual novels, games, shows, whatever it may be. I try to catch up with friends as well, streams, clean if I need to, run errands. It really depends. No day is really the same because it really depends on my schedule. If I have a hectic schedule, I mean, it's probably going to be something where I'm going to make something real quick for food and just kind of go through the motions from there. If it's more relaxed or laid back, I try to mix depending upon what I'm in the mood for or feel like doing. I will admit, that's one of the nice things is the only constant is that there is no constant in terms of what my days are like, so.
I mean, my days are varied because my work, we don't have a schedule. My manager pretty much does, okay, you work this week, the next week's going to be different, the next week's going to be different. And I'm usually the closer, so I leave home around 4 and I don't get back until like 2 o'clock in the evening, so.
Yeah, it's difficult to, especially when you have a flexible schedule like that, and that's just it. Depends on what you're in the mood for when you get back and what you have time for it, so sky is the limit.
I fully agree. Going on my 17th question, I got some help on a Discord that I just so happen to be a member of. But the question is, what part of the creation process do you find the hardest to get motivated to finish, and how do you overcome it?
Editing hands down is always going to be the most time-consuming process. Mm-hmm. In any medium, editing is always extremely difficult, and that's the thing. It's for me personally, it's watching something come together. Pace it, take breaks. When you're first starting out, don't make a 30, 50, hour and a half minute video. Don't go that far. Short and sweet. Get comfortable with it, start learning the program, get a feel for it. Then you can start making longer content. Find what works for you, find the format that works for you, and go from there. Watch out for scope creep. Don't let your imagination get out of control. Keep it simple. Don't try to overextend yourself or overexert yourself. You're only going to burn yourself out, and you're just not going to want to do it then. Way back when I would do anime wallpapers, I had probably about like 50 concepts. About 4 of them I only ever finished because they would all eventually just balloon way out of what I was capable of doing, and ultimately I wouldn't be able to finish them because now I have an idea in my head and I don't want any other idea than this, and I cannot execute this idea because it goes well beyond my skill range. That's the thing. It's set yourself up for success. Set yourself up so that you will succeed, not that you're going to overwhelm yourself.
Well said. Very well said. And to go off that question, this is a question from my friend. How does one go about not procrastinating, and how do you get motivated to do just the usual stuff like the previous question?
Oh gosh. Well, I have a PhD in procrastination, so there we go. Look, at the end of the day, sometimes you just need to take a break. Sometimes you need to step away. It depends on you and your concentration levels. It depends on how much you're able to focus. Do bits and pieces at a time. Allow yourself to take a break. Allow yourself to step away. Don't allow yourself to get drowned in it, to just get completely lost in it. But take breaks here and there. Come back to it. Do a little bit, take a break. Do a little bit, take a break. Keep going from there. So one of the common things I would see back when I used to be a forum moderator at this anime wallpaper community was you'd see people who'd put out these wallpapers and they'd write a description in them. And the way they would word the description, it's like, I had to put this out. I had a deadline to put this out. And you don't. There is no deadline. You have no guidelines or time restrictions that you have to meet for putting that out. Take your time. You know, especially if you're first starting out to do something, take your time, get a feel for it. Don't do it for anyone else but for yourself. You gotta want to do it for you. I mean, let other people motivate you, but do it for yourself. Otherwise, it's really difficult to get past it. But yeah, set yourself up for success. The same thing falls in there. Find your shortcomings. Find the areas that you lack in, that you trip up with, and find ways to work with them, to work around them, or to just circumvent them entirely.
This is another question that's going to be probably much on everyone. For future YouTubers, Twitch streamers, what type of advice would you love to give, if you have any?
So this is probably the first time I'm going to say something that's actually going to sound harsh. Sometimes we're just not cut out for something.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it doesn't work. Sometimes the idea we have just fizzles out. Ever try, ever fail, no matter. Try again, fail again, fail better. Just remember that you're going to make mistakes. You're going to fall into shortcomings or so forth. It's important to just keep working around it. Find what works best for you. You know, I've done a lot of different things, and I've learned a lot about where I excel and where I struggle. And let me just tell you, we're all going to struggle at something. No matter what it is, we're going to find something that it's just going to be like hitting a brick wall. Sometimes you can get around it. Sometimes you can finagle your way past it. But ultimately, you know, it depends. Because sometimes you just hit that wall and there it is. But it's important that you give it a shot. It's important that you try. You know, if you've got an idea in mind, if you feel like it's something that's unique, that no one's really doing, and you feel like that someone could build off it, great. But more important than anything else, and this is especially true with now, do it because you want to, not because you want to make a career out of it. I mean, way back, like a decade ago, YouTube was a platform where you could be successful and wealthy just simply by being on there. I mean, you'd go through like a sponsor or like, you know, through another channel or something. I can't remember. Like they had a system set up for that. I'm blanking on the name right now. But the thing is that like partnerships existed and it was real easy to work with another company like a Machinima or someone else. And not only would you make ad revenue, but then you'd also make money with them. Now you have to stream. It's about Twitch, it's about Patreon, it's about donations, merchandise, YouTube. You're hitting a variety of different things. It is a lot of work, and even then, there's no guarantee you're going to make more money than you would doing something like fast food or retail. Mm-hmm. Bottom line, very bluntly serious. Do it for fun, do it because you want to. Try to see where it goes from there. If it looks like you're starting to able to build something off of it to where you can take it somewhere, put a few more eggs in that basket, but don't hinge your bets entirely on something just because of that. Even if it's a dream, take it smart, take it slow. Don't put everything on one thing. Don't bet all on blue, because more than anything else, if it doesn't work out, you're going to crush yourself. And furthermore, you set yourself up for a greater failure as a result. Set yourself up for success. Increase your probabilities of doing well.
That doesn't sound harsh at all to me. Like, it's very realistic. I think the way I always look at it is, pretend everyone, when I was younger, a lot of people wanted to become pro athletes and stuff like that, and YouTuber wasn't one that I commonly heard when I was younger. And even pro athletes, yeah, hard work does get you a long way. But when it comes to things like YouTube, like hard work can only get you so far. it's luck based. And if you put, like you said, all on blue, all on this chance, you have nothing else going through you, and it doesn't work out. Now you have nothing. Like for me, like I love doing YouTube, and I turn it into a hobby, but I'm still going to school for hospitality management. That's like my future right now. And if this works out, then I have something like 2 choices, whichever one I really want to go into. And then I'm working at a fast food joint myself. So it's just like more or less you don't want to put it all on, like you said, and like turning this into a hobby is always the best option, because if you try and turn it into a career and you're starting out at say like 16-year-old and you turn it into a career, not planning on going to college, not planning on doing anything, and then next you know you're wondering later on in life while you're at a fast food joint or something like that, then it's hard. But
yeah, and that's the thing. It's just it's like a lot of this stuff. It's about building connections. It's about being at the right place at the right time with the right product. It's about knowing how to adjust and adapt to that. It's about the commitment as well. Just Nux works his ass off. And even then, he's not even editing content. He's writing stuff, but he's constantly working with other people, constantly networking, building collaborations, going from there. It's a lot of, like any career field, you got to put in the time and the work to make it happen. But that's the thing, is not everybody can make it. Not everyone can make it to a point where they're able to be decently profitable off of it. And that's the thing. It's about going from there. Hey, look, if you want to do it, great. Work to try and make it happen. But yeah, keep your options open. Keep those doors wide open. Don't close opportunities on yourself. Like, play the field, see what's out there, and go from there.
And honestly, that's like the best question to end it off of. Thank you so much for being the guest, my very first guest, my official guest on my interview series. On a scale of 1 to 10, how did you like it?
I would rate it a 10 out of 10. It was a good experience. Thank you so much for having me on board. It's been great.
No problem. So, if all you guys who doesn't know, my plan for the end of this, I'm going to let the guests decide who the next victim or guest, if you want a kind of word, would be on my interview series. And Cyanide is the one to pick it. I gave him a list already. Would you like to announce it to everyone?
Oh, I would. Yeah, you see, I am using a random number generator based off of the list of numbers that you gave me.
I'd love to see it.
And I'm going to hit stop when you tell me.
Okay, 3, 2, 1, stop.
I think we're going to look at your second guest being...
Thank you so much. Oh, by the way, if you guys didn't know, yeah, sorry, I'm not gonna let you guys actually hear who the heck it is. So, you guys just have to wait until the next one of these to actually know who my next guest is. Only I know, only Cyanide knows. But thank you so much, Cyanide, for being a part of this series. And thank you for actually allowing me to reach out and accepting my offer.
Pleasure was all mine. Thank you so much once again. It's been great.
Well, that's all we have for today, guys. Thank you guys so much. And if you guys obviously liked the video, please like it. It will really help me a lot to know if you guys actually like the series. And just remember to fly high.